Hi, hey, I thought I would do a quick stream today, a quick live stream on trying to get to know ourselves better. And here at Best Acupuncture on this page, I do a lot of information on our spirituality, our humanity, and how we live in this world, how we interact in this world through our body. And a lot of that information comes from Taoism. So, I've been doing a couple broadcasts lately, and so that's what brought me to this one. And, I did this one, the Dai Mai and the Impossible to Lose Weight, which talked about how we trap trauma really deep into our body, how we intentionally map trauma really deep into our body. And then I did this other one on trauma, bullying, and the low collaterals, which talks about how we initially start mapping trauma into our body. And that's what I wanted to talk about today because, we spend a lot of time trying to get to know ourselves better. We get confused. I don't know. Some people get confused at their interactions with the world, why they are acting in a certain way, and why it just seems so incredibly unmanageable. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit more and start bringing up a different concept of what our body is and how we use our body in this world. And in Taoism, they talk about the Shen. And there's this Shen, and they say it's what does not transform. So the Shen stays constant at all times. And the Shen is what comes into the body. And the body is formed through our essences, which is Jing, and through Qi. So Jing and Qi creates the body, and this body is this shell that the spirit comes into. So when you talk to people who are practicing meditation and mindfulness, their goal is really to try and find that perfect unity with their Shen, or with their original and true self. And that's the self that doesn't change. Everything in our physical body, it changes every day. And the Shen is what stays the same. Now, okay, so why does it become confusing when we're trying to interact with the world? So you know how they say the Shen is everything and it's perfect peace and it's your godlike self. And so that self knows everything, but it comes down and interacts with the world through the body. And the body is formed every day by our experiences. So, an easy way to look at it is when you look at people who have been living in poverty, who have been under extreme stress, when you go into those areas, their bodies may look crippled. They may be hunched over. They may look exhausted. And that is the experiences of life mapping onto their bodies. So think about that. So there's the experiences of life. It's mapping onto your bodies, and your perfect self, your true, beautiful self, your godlike self, when it wants to interact with the world, it has to come through the body. And it has to see the world through the body. It can't just hang out, on the sidelines and go, hey, I'm my perfect self and everything's wonderful. No, in order to act here and now, we have to act through the body. And so that perfect self has this shell that it interacts with, and that shell is impacted by every experience that we have. Now, in Chinese medicine, in classical Chinese medicine, they talk about how we map that onto our bodies. And that was what those two episodes were. It started talking to how we map our physical experiences, how we map what's happening into the world onto our body. And the one that talks about how we initially start mapping trauma into our body was the one on trauma, bullying, and the low collaterals. And then the Dai Mai talks about when trauma has become so entrenched in our body, how we map that into our daimai so that we can keep that with us forever. But those mappings, they change. Let's say this body is kind of like this visor that you look through. Those mappings change the tints and the colors of your visor. And so as your perfect self, as your perfect Shen comes and looks through your visor, your visor may have some different colors, which makes it hard for you to see what really is happening in the world. So that's the other thing, there's that thought that all our perceptions are just that. Their perceptions are not really what's happening in the world. And so you have all these people reacting in the world off of their perceptions, and none of that's really true. But your perfect Shen has to come down through your body, and what it sees is going to be colored and tinted by every one of your experiences. Okay, well, think of how many experiences you've had in your life. And we like to think in the West in this perfect linear fashion. We have this very metal perception of the world. And metal, they like either or situations, one or the other. So we can only be this. But have you ever noticed that your emotions are all over the place sometimes? Sometimes they're like this, and sometimes they're like that. And it gets confusing because your body isn't giving you one line, isn't giving you a linear thought process that you can easily navigate through. Nope. It has this myriad, it has all of these experiences plastered onto your visor, and you have to look through every one of those experiences in order to reach the other person you're talking to, or in order to interact with the world. So sometimes you interact with somebody who's a jerk, and so you map that onto your body and you go, when they do this, they're a jerk. But you might run into another person at another date and they kind of act the same way, but they're not a jerk. So then you're going to map that onto your body. And so now you've got these two different colors, because the one that made you upset is going to be a darker color, and the one that made you happy is going to be a lighter color. And so then when you deal with a third person who's kind of acting that same way, which way do you go? And that's where things start getting confusing. It's that we've mapped so many things onto our visor. Which one are we going to look through? How are we going to see the world today? And so that's when it starts getting super confusing, trying to figure out who we are. And here's the thing. When you try and figure out who you are, remember that's not who you are. Who you are is that perfect Shen that's behind this visor of your body. So you are always this perfect person. It's just that this visor has all these colors splattered all over your visor. And so it makes it really hard to see the world and interact with it constantly on an even keel. Okay, so let's say we want to clean off that visor, because sometimes that visor can be a little bit annoying, right? Well, that's where this came in. The three ways that we shape meaning from our experiences. And that's through our thoughts, through our words, and through our movements. And why does that make sense? Well, if we're mapping all our experiences on our body, if we're painting our visor all these different colors with every experience that we have, we can either be a victim of circumstance in a sense, where we let the wind throw us whatever way it wants to throw us. Or we can take direct action on how we're going to interact with the world and how we see the world. And that's with our thoughts, our words, and our movements. And those are three really physical things that the body can do. So if you want to change something, one of the first things to do is change your thoughts. Try thinking about it in a different way. And that's a very 8 extraordinary vessel exercise of the Chow Mai is, okay, this thing is happening in the external world, and I find it really unpleasant. How can I think about that in a different way? So not so much of trying to change what the situation is or what's going on. What's going on, who knows? Because, right, we've got this visor that we perceive things and it's not real. So the Chow Mai is about your perceptions of the world. And what you might want to do is ask yourself, what is, what's going, or you might want to say to yourself, what's going on right now is real. And I know it's real, but I do not have to let that impact me anymore. That's one way of looking at it. And I mean to get out over the next couple days of meditation to address that, so that you can even help yourself even further by helping meditate to change how you perceive something in today's world, in the here and now. Not things from your past, not all those memories, but to change it in the here and now. So another thing is to look at that and just say, from a thought perspective, okay, this is really frustrating. I don't like it. What could I do differently? Not that it's going to change the situation or make it all that much better, but what could you do differently to make it better for yourself? And so that's another way you could look at it. Now, your words are really impactful, and how we talk about the world and how we interact with other people. Our words can really create that visor. It really creates that picture and colors that picture for us. So one of the things you can do is, everybody runs around with their phone, right? We all got our phones with us. So let's see here. We all got our phones. And you might want to record your conversation at times just to see what kind of words you're using. I know that we think we understand what we're saying all the time, but sometimes if you record yourself, you're like, who knew, right? Who knew? So that's another way that you can look at it. And then you can think about, okay, are there different words that I can use to change that? And then the last thing is movement. This is really interesting, because then that is a very physical expression of our body. How we move our body. Are we hunched over? Do we pull our shoulders forward? Do we always look down? Are we always looking up? How are you using your body? And taking that and changing it. And let me tell you, from a yoga perspective, from a Taoist perspective, from meditation perspective, really what you want to do is start straightening that spine. Get that spine straight, pull back your shoulders, look straight ahead. You want to kind of change your movement into that direction. So think about those 3 things. And when you're thinking about those 3 things, you might be thinking that, well, that just seems like that's never going to get me anywhere. The reality is that, you're 80% water, right? Maybe less, who knows, 70%. You're a lot of water. And think about dropping a stone in a still lake. That ripple, it reaches out to the full lake. So that one little pebble in the middle of the lake can reach out to the full lake. So when you do these one little things, that will reach out to the full body. And that way you can start to see the real beauty of you again. You can start seeing your true self that, is forced to interact with this world through our body. You can start seeing that person come shining through again. Okay, you guys, take care. And until next time, I will catch you on the other side.